Okay, happy October, horror fans. Even though we're recording this in September, I shouldn't
Yes.
have given that away, but we're getting extra episodes up and running because this is the month of us horror fans. This is like Christmas
Mhm.
for us horror fans. So, yeah, this is one of my early reviews for October. Well, one of our early reviews, and we're going to do as many episodes as possible for the month
Mhm.
of October. And we thought it'd be a good idea to have a look back at the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. But, oh, she's got the Blu-ray. Very proud. Very
Of
proud.
course.
I'm
So,
not
yes.
sure everyone would be that proud, but Rachel, she's really
It's
given it.
Buffy. It doesn't matter what form it is, it's
Yeah.
still Buffy.
Was that Pike on the cover with her?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So this
Luke
this cover
Perry.
is a little too moody for this film, which we're going to get into because obviously this is a
Yeah,
very
very.
light film. I feel like they're trying to sell it kind of like more like the TV show. We have fog and
Yeah.
mist and everyone, and Pike looks a little bit broody and like angel-like. So
Yeah.
we're definitely aiming for a different audience, I think, than would be expected
Yeah.
for this film.
More gothic.
I kind of wanted the cheesy 90s cover with the fluoro pink and the fluoro green,
Yeah.
but instead I got this, but better than nothing. But it's definitely misleading if you see this cover and you're expecting a dark, gritty film like the series. But I still love this film. It's still a lot of fun. So we're going to get
Okay.
into this.
So yeah, I mean, really, we don't need to say it up because for anyone who knows the TV shows, but in this case, this was obviously pre the TV show. It's Kirsty Swanson playing Buffy this time. Obviously, I mean, in a way, it's sort of interesting watching the TV show later because the TV show does refer back to some of the events in this, but we are introduced to Buffy as the more shallow, vapid sort of valley girl type
Yes.
who is approached by the Donald Sutherland character in this movie, who's like the sort of Giles of this movie. I forget his name actually. What was
Merrick.
Sutherland's? Merrick.
Merrick.
That's it. He's like the Giles style watcher in this movie. And he approaches her, and we get a little bit of origins of the Slayer and how it all came about. And if you think of Clueless, but with a Buffy styles, it's almost like that. It's riffing off that sort of humor and sort of high school life and how Buffy like deals with that stuff and tries to balance the two. And you have a love interest, which is it's sort of sad watching this, isn't it? Because obviously Luke Perry has sadly passed
Yeah.
away, and Rutger Hauer as well, who's also in the
Yes.
movie as like one of the main villains. So sort of sad that then we have to look back and say those two are no longer around. But they're both in this. Bunch of other people who are now really familiar. Because someone has told me, although I've never seen him, that Ben Affleck has a small scene or
He is.
something.
He is. And it's kind of a blink and you miss it. You will see
Yeah.
him at the end. He's on the basketball court and he gets thrown a basketball by a vampire. And then
Okay.
he just kind of goes, ugh, gives the ball back. And then you see him a few other times. So, yes, a very young Ben Affleck is in this. You have future Oscar winner Hilary Swank is in
Yeah.
this, playing one of Buffy's shallow valley girlfriends, which she
Oh
is
yeah.
brilliant and hilarious. And I have never seen this, but apparently Seth Green is in this movie. Seth
Oh
Green
yeah.
plays
Oh,
a teenage vampire. I every time I watch this film, I try to keep an eye out for him, but he's either very well hidden with makeup or he's been cut
yeah.
out of the film. He was actually on one of the VHS dust cover had a picture of him on it. So he is somewhere in the film. I'm not sure where, but there are quite a few recognizable faces in this film.
Yeah, and it's just sort of funny that because obviously when the film was made, I'm assuming they had no idea they would do a TV show. Obviously, the
No.
TV show much later. So it's just sort of funny that Seth Green apparently does appear.
Yeah.
Because in a way, if they knew they were doing a TV show and knew he would be in it, then you could kind of understand. But it's just this weird sort of I mean, mate, he must have just had a really good agent, or he's sort of hanging around all these sets, hoping for bit part roles. Maybe that was part of
Yeah.
his strategy. But
No.
yeah, there's a lot of different faces. David Arquette's in this
Oh,
again
of course, of course.
before he was. before he was famous, before the Scream days. So before we start talking about the movie, I do have a fun fact, which I don't know if you knew or not, but Dolly Parton's production company was involved in this.
Yes, I did know
yeah.
that. Yes, there was a big thing recently that blew up in the Buffy fandom where everyone was like, "Did you guys know that Dolly Parton produced Buffy?" And everyone was like, "What?" But yes, I did actually know that, and that is a very cool fact.
That's really cool. Yeah. But yeah, you know, Fran Ruben Krutzy, I'm not sure how you
Yeah,
say
good
it.
luck pronouncing that.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
last name. She directs. She, of course, later became a producer on the TV show and Angel as well, I think, but certainly
Yes.
the TV show.
Hmm.
And Josh Whedon had a hand in the script, but notoriously there was a lot of, you know, his vision really didn't get across in the script.
Yeah. This script was well, it's kind of Buffy's origin story, but there were a lot of changes made. So there is a novelization of the original script, which I read when I was about 15, 16 years old, which shows
Okay.
quite a few of the differences. So we'll probably go into mild spoiler territory, but it's a Buffy movie. There's not that much to spoil. I mean, you know eventually where she's going to end up, but there's a particular death scene in particular that is very, very different in the original script than what it was in the
Okay.
movie. So there were a few different things. The ending is slightly different, and then I think it was Omnibus ended up releasing a graphic novel based off the original script
Mm.
of the Buffy movie. So again, you can see when you watch the film and when you've read the original novel, you'll see that it does follow kind of like the same general outline. It's just there's a lot more nuance and a little bit more extra characterization, a little bit less cheese than is in the actual movie.
Yeah.
But as an origin story, it's not too bad. I think with the Buffy movie, especially if you are a fan of the TV show, you have to go in expecting a completely different experience. If you go into this movie expecting a
Yeah.
TV show, you will be vastly disappointed. This is a relic of the early 90s, and the early 90s were a very weird time, a very cheesy, strange
Yeah.
time, and you can definitely see it in this film right from the opening scene, which is this beautifully cheesy medieval type setup where we see Buffy in a horrible, horrible outfit and her watcher showing how she becomes called. It is the most cheesy thing you will ever see. It's brilliant. And it segues into this brilliant cheerleading.
It's really
This
not brilliant.
cheerleading, yeah, it
It's
is.
really
Keith,
not
Keith and I
brilliant.
are going to disagree on this
That
because
was a stupid transition.
I was 5 minutes into this film and thinking, I already love this so much cheese, so brilliant. Also, a little thing I noticed is that the basketball team in this movie are called the Hogs, and later on in Sunnydale we have the Razorback. So I'm wondering if maybe
Okay.
that was kind
A
of a
little
little.
bit of a link, yeah.
But I do think that the opening with the cheerleaders, because obviously you see Buffy front and center. She's the head cheerleader. She's has the popular boyfriend. I think it does perfectly set up her character and what she is going to start as and what the journey is going to be of her
It is.
character.
Is that the guy who was in the Halloween movie last week we watched? You said,
No. Yes, but
okay.
so no, so her boyfriend is a different guy, but the guy who was in the Halloween movie, Grady, he is the vampire, the teen vampire who ends up like on the court later on in the movie playing
Okay.
the game. And like no one seems to notice, by the way. This
Yeah.
dude is literally floating and all the coaches are just like, get him off the court. It's like no one's gonna question the fact that he's flying. No, that's normal. Okay, we'll just ignore that. It feels like they have a little bit of Sunnydale syndrome going on. At the beginning of the film, we get Buffy. Actually, her characterization reminded me very much of early seasons Cordelia, in that she comes across as very
Oh,
vapid and very self-centered and very unaware, but not dumb. Like I never get the impression that Buffy is dumb
yeah.
or unintelligent, just that she's a little shallow and a little frivolous. She's definitely got a bit of Cher Horowitz going on. The Valley Girl stuff, a lot of the quotes I absolutely love because she has that whole Valley Girl talk going on. I just think the setup of Buffy as a character and what she's supposed to be is brilliant. Christy Swanson is obviously never going to be Sarah Michelle Gellar. We all love Sarah Michelle Gellar and she's so great in the role. But I think with what she has and what the script that she had, I think Christy does a good job. And I actually have a real soft spot for her Buffy. So I just really enjoy her characterization.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think she's pretty solid in it. Yeah, I think she's one of the few sort of good points for me. Yeah, and actually, one thing I picked out, which I thought was a nice touch, is when she's talking to Merrick at one point, and I think it's the first time they've sort of spoken, but she actually makes a point of saying vampires can't get me unless I invite them in. And I sort of like that moment because it does show that maybe she's a little smarter than we've been led to believe. So
Mm.
that was a nice touch, actually, that moment. So yeah, no, I think she's a pretty good Buffy. It's obviously hard when you obviously see how big the show was, and obviously we both love the show, and it's a classic, and obviously, yeah, now it's hard to imagine in anyone else. But I mean, as someone who you're gonna watch and compare a bit, but as a good sort of second Buffy, I think she's pretty good. I think she's got the physicality down quite well, and I think when you get into the stuff with Pike and stuff like that, I think she is sort of quite likable. Not a bad Buffy, even though I don't really like the film, but it's not a bad Buffy in the film. So, I mean, I guess to start off with, I mean, let's talk about some of the other characters because I didn't like the Donald Sutherland character in this.
Oh, Merrick.
He's very stalkerish. I mean, because there's almost a joke like in the Buffy TV pilot where Giles is showing up at the Bronze and he's being a bit too forward. But I mean, this guy makes him look like totally restrained, and the way he starts pursuing her. And I think the problem is because to me, a lot of Donald Sutherland's best roles are when he's playing someone a bit sort of creepy or kind of, a bit more murky, let's say. And in a way, all he's doing in this is he's playing that part, except that's not really what the character is supposed to be. And I think, again, when you think of this compared with the TV show, one of the problem with the movie is they just rush through all this stuff. So
Yes.
they're trying to push this idea that there's this father-daughter relationship, but logically you can't really do that over the course of a movie, quite a short movie. Obviously, because in the TV show you don't really get to that point till at the very least, like maybe the end of season one. It takes quite a while to sort of get there. And that's why, I mean, obviously getting into spoilers now, but that's why when Merrick is killed off, you don't really care because you're not really into their relationship. It all
Yeah.
feels very rushed. Because I sort of thought, even though I quite enjoy the stuff with her and Pike, I mean, Luke Perry probably the other highlight for me of the movie. I've always quite liked him. I mean, 90210 was a big part of my youth, so I've sort of liked him since those days. But I think he is quite likable, and I quite enjoyed their chemistry. Whereas her and Sutherland, I didn't think had any particular chemistry. I thought her and Perry had much better chemistry. It's worth saying actually, because I know another thing about the film is then Sutherland and Whedon fell out because Sutherland
Yes.
apparently started like ad-libbing and coming up with his own stuff, and so that's something else to think about. But yeah, Sutherland, who obviously is a really good actor, I think this is one of my least favorite performances of it.
Yeah.
He just
And
doesn't fit that role, and he just plays in like totally the wrong way. And yeah, I didn't get that sense of chemistry. Better chemistry with her and Pike, her and Perry, but even that romance is rushed because if you think of it as like him being like the angel of this film, obviously again that's a slow burn relationship in the series. I think that's a big problem with the film that they try to cram this stuff all in, and because obviously it does take a while for it to get to the point where this stuff is like getting into motion. There's a lot of stuff with her just hanging out with her friends. I mean, what did you think of some of these characters? And
so I definitely agree when it comes to Merrick. And I knew about like Donald Sutherland and Joss Whedon having issues. And I remember reading that Joss had said something like Donald Sutherland would read lines in different intonations, so he would change the tone of the scene just by the way he would deliver the lines, and you can really see that. Like his first meeting with Buffy in the gym, he comes across as such a creeper. It's like if I was Buffy, I would have just hightailed it out of there and been like, dude, what the hell? Like, why are you? Oh, even when he runs into her at the mall and he just stares at her as she's going into the elevator, very, very creepy. And I do think a lot of that has to do with John Sutherland just not realizing that he was in a hammy, cheesy movie and deciding to play this role completely straight and completely serious. And it doesn't work. I will say there was one scene between Buffy and Merrick that I liked, and that was after they were doing a whole training montage, and he talks about, and this is an interesting concept because he brings up a concept that is in the movie, but they took out of the TV show, which is probably a good thing because it sounds a bit convoluted, but he talks about how he has lived hundreds of lifetimes training hundreds of Slayers, which seems to suggest reincarnation. And when we see the flashbacks of the previous Slayers, we see Buffy, like Christy Swanson playing the previous Slayers. When Merrick first comes to her, he says, have you been having the dreams where you are a peasant girl, you are a medieval princess? And she's like, yeah, I've had those dreams. And the implication is that the Watcher and the Slayer are just reincarnations, like over and over and over again. It's the same people, which, like I said, is kind of interesting in theory. It's kind of like Avatar, with the Avatar being born into a new body, the last Airbender every generation. But I'm kind of glad that they got rid of that for the series because it gave us more room to explore different Slayers from different cultures and stuff like that. But no, I definitely agree that Merrick is creepy. But the scene I was talking about is, he and Buffy have like a kind of a quiet scene where he talks about how he's trained tons of Slayers, but he does think that she is exceptional. And then she kind of makes a joke about how she has something the other girls doesn't, and it's her keen fashion sense, and then he makes a joke back. They have like a little bonding moment there, and I feel like if they worked more of those scenes in, then we would have had the relationship that we were supposed to have, like you were talking about, because it is very clearly supposed to be like Buffy Giles. But one, Sutherland is a dick. Two, he just reads the lines really wrong. Three, they have no chemistry. And four, there just was not enough time to develop any of this. Now, you mentioned his death. His death is the one that is very different in the original screenplay. So in the original, first of all, his death is ridiculous, okay? Like, Merrick is so ineffective. I know that in the Buffy fandom, we all talk about how Giles gets knocked out a lot and how he's always running into danger. But at least Giles, we've seen, can kind of take care of himself. There are two instances in this movie where Merrick tries to go up against a vampire and he just gets taken out within 2 seconds flat. And so in this one, he goes, obviously, to stake Lothos, and Lothos just turns the stake around and stakes him, and it looks like the funniest thing ever. In the original script, Lothos has Buffy trapped. He has her cornered, and Merrick actually stays behind to sacrifice himself so that she can escape with Pike. And she doesn't see his death. She just hears it as she rides off on Pike's motorbike. It's kind of like a self-sacrifice, and there's a lot more of an emotional impact because he sacrificed himself to save her, as opposed to in this movie where he just kind of dies because he's clumsy and doesn't know how to fight a vampire. So I feel like if they'd left that original scripting in, it may have hit better, but then that may not have fit with the tone of this movie, which is a very lighthearted movie. And I will say, as much as I enjoy this film, there is a definite tone problem with this film. It doesn't seem to know if it wants to be a campy, schlocky, kind of just have fun, lighthearted horror spoof, or if it wants to be like a serious horror film. And it seems to fluctuate between the two a lot. Like sometimes you'll have these really cheesy campy scenes with Buffy and her friends discussing like what impacts the earth, when they're talking about environmentalism and they're all talking about like what's bad for the earth, and they're like, oh, bugs are bad, and it's like really stupid. But it'll go from that to like a semi-serious scene where Buffy is dreaming of Lothos, and there are a couple of like actual scenes that are genuinely creepy and do not feel like they fit in this film because the tone is just so different. So I do think there is a tone problem. I do agree that she and Luke Perry have really good chemistry. Like you said, Luke Perry he's just great. Like I watched 90210 as well, and I've been recently watching him in Riverdale before he passed away, and he's always just great. And I kind of love Pike as a character. I love his early 90s stoner slacker vibes. I love how chill he is, and he is so smart. Like when shit hits the fan, he just hightails it out of there. He's like, nope, I'm not sticking around to see whatever other crazy happens. I am getting out of Dodge. Like Pike is 100% that character that survives the horror film because he's smart enough to run away when the danger comes, and he's smart enough to get out of Dodge. But he's also like, I like that he comes and he helps Buffy. I like that he tries to confront Buffy. I didn't feel like their romance was supposed to be like big, epic Buffy and Angel. I felt like it was supposed to be what it was. Like they were getting to know each other, and then the implication is at the end they drive off together to then kind of start a relationship. Like what we're seeing is the build up. Yeah, to the relationship. And when he shows up at the prom, I kind of get, Angel showing up at the prom vibe. So you can see a little bit of the groundwork here that would then make its way into the series. But there's definitely a lot of cheese. And I'm guessing that that's what brings the movie down. Because see, I love the cheesy aspect, but I'm always a sucker for a good bit of 90s cheese. So it works for me.
Yeah, I can be. I mean, obviously, this was before Clueless, but obviously it was going for a similar humor. And obviously I love Clueless, but that's the thing. This just feels like a far inferior version of Clueless. A lot of the jokes I didn't even find that funny. It's almost like they weren't really jokes. They were just throwing words out there. And I think it was just too on the nose in that sense. It was almost like, I can't really believe they would actually say this stuff, or it was just like, well, at least make it into a joke, because obviously, Clueless is a really sharply written, funny sort of film. And just certain things like that environmental, that gag, they just kept returning to that. And it's like, we've already done this gag. Can we move on now? So I didn't really find it funny. As I said, some of the characters, I'm not really into the vampires in this.
They're a little cheesy. Okay, can I interrupt you, Sensei? Because we have to talk about a particular vampire, Amelin, because I love Amelin. Paul Rubens giving it his all, and this is kind of spoilery, guys, but we need to talk about this scene because Keith doesn't like this scene, and we're gonna discuss why. Amelin's death scene, which is quite possibly the best scene in the entire movie, and you don't like it? What is that about?
I think because it's too meta for me, so it just take me. So I just think when you have those moments, I just want those moments to be those moments in a way, and not to continue. Because come on, it's like the Rudger is playing like a violin or something. That's terrible.
No, it's fantastic. Terrible. It's brilliant. If Keith can throw part of this scene up here, guys, and tell us what you think when you see this death scene. And keep in mind, it's supposed to be cheesy.
You're gonna wish you died. Ooh, ah, ow, ooh, ooh, ah, ah, ah.
I remember the first time I watched this movie. It was years and years and years ago with my husband, and we were obviously not married back then, but we sat through this whole movie just thinking, oh my God, what is this? And then we got to that scene, and I just remember we were in hysterics because he's just having so much fun. And I love that point where he actually stops and he looks at Christy, and then he just keeps going. And it's just like they're all just kind of going along. Oh, such a good scene.
I suppose also that's similar to Buffy versus Dracula, a bit of humour they do in that, which is fun. And that I did enjoy, but it's like, maybe I'm being a bit of a grump. I can maybe accept that. Maybe I'll rewatch it and enjoy.
But I do agree that the vampires in this film are very, very cheesy. They hiss a lot. And then there's one who keeps making like this noise with his mouth every time he sees Buffy. He's like, I'm like, what is that? What are you doing? Are you trying to like indicate that you're hungry? It was very weird. Yeah. So the vampires are just not scary. Even Lothos, who's supposed to be, now Lothos is supposed to be kind of like this version of the Master. He's the big bad vampire. There's an implication that she's been fighting him for generations, for years. And he's played by Rutger Hauer, who is,
really good.
Solid, really good. But again, kind of wasted.
Weak character. Yeah.
Yes, very weak character.
And I think just some of the stuff in the movies, it just felt like they were going for a grab bag of things that they imagine this is very 90s, so like people on motorbikes and the whole sort of slacker. And I think they were just throwing stuff at the screen. And some of it you could say, okay, this maybe sort of feels quite 90s, and other stuff, it's like, yeah, they kind of don't really know regular people on the street almost. I didn't like the Arquette character. He really annoyed me. He was
Oh, really? Oh, Benny, he's brilliant. I love that scene where he turns up at Pike's window and Pike is still kind of thrashed from the night before, and he's just like, "Are you okay, Benny? You're floating, man. Go home."
I guess also that sort of stuff reminded me a bit of Jesse in the pilot as well.
Yeah.
I mean, slightly different because obviously Pike isn't one of like the central characters in a way. Well, he's in this movie, but he's not. But yeah, it reminded me a bit of what happened to Jesse in the pilot a little bit.
Pike is a character I love. Pike is great, like we said before. I love his slacker vibes. I actually came to the realization that within the Buffy canon, he's probably Buffy's best boyfriend. when you really think about it. No one's a vampire. No one's working for the Initiative or is a big boring block of wood. He's supportive of Buffy. He calls her out when he needs to. He's actually a pretty good boyfriend, and he's Luke Perry, so that's always a plus. I think Pike is a highlight of this film. I think Pike and Buffy's relationship is one of the highlights of this film. I think it is very cute, and I think it's interesting how that when they first both meet each other, they obviously have just formed these stereotypical like impressions of each other. So she sees him and he's just the stoner slacker, and he sees her and she's just the shallow valley girl. And as the movie progresses, they kind of learn to see that there's a bit more to each other than what first meets the eye. I think if the movie had been better directed, or if they'd stuck to the original script, that could have been a very interesting relationship. But as with most of the things in this movie, it was quite shallow. But for what it was, I thought that was interesting. It's funny, do you remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they released a bunch of like books that were related to Buffy. They weren't canon books, but they were like little stories that people would write and that would just get released under the Buffy brand. Did you ever read any of those?
No, I think I might have one.
Yeah. Well, one of them actually has Pike turn up in Sunnydale. So I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. So there is one where Pike turns up and Buffy introduces him to everyone, and he kind of meets Angel, and it's a very interesting concept to actually bring the character into the universe, even if it is in just like a non-canon book. I had a lot of fun with Pike. I had a lot of fun with Benny. I think they're just having so much fun play. And I think that's the thing. I think the characters in this movie who work best are the ones that aren't taking it too seriously. I think that's where Sutherland falls down. I think that's a little bit where Howard falls down, is you got these grade 8 actors in this very B-grade movie, and they just took it too seriously. And so their parts became very jarring, because when you're not taking this film seriously, it's just fun. At least I have a lot of fun watching this. I like to enjoy the 90s-ness of it. I like to enjoy the terrible costumes. I love to enjoy the terrible music. Oh my God, some of the music.
Because that's another thing. If you're comparing it to Clueless, the Clueless soundtrack sort of it's
absolutely. But I really do love Buffy as a character. I think you see a lot of the bones of the character she will become in the TV show. You see that she's sassy from the beginning. She's smart. She's not stupid. She's vapid and she's shallow, but she's not stupid. You also see that she doesn't take people's crap. Like, I love at the end, towards the end of the movie, one of the guys tries to grab her ass and she just flips him over her shoulder, kind of similarly to what she does to Larry in the TV show. So you see a lot of like that sassiness and that confidence. And you also see her transition. Like, she does actually have an arc in this movie. It's small, but you see her change from a vapid valley girl to someone who knows that there are bigger things going on. Like, she has that confrontation with her friends when they're all worried about the dance, and she's trying to say there are bigger things out there. There are more important things. And then she tries to go back to her old life. So she tries to go to the dance and be a normal girl, but she ends up having to fight anyway. And I think that obviously was brought into the series. That's a big running theme with Buffy in the series, is her trying to be normal and trying to balance her normal life with her duties as a slayer. So I think you do see that a little bit in this movie, but again, it's kind of just the bare bones without the meat.
One bit I did laugh at, and you'll have to remind me, but that cheerleader chant they do at one point.
That how
all
funky
about-
is your chicken?
Yeah,
Is that
that-
the one? Yeah.
that was good. I
That
might
was brilliant.
stick a clip of that in at the end.
Definitely throw that one up.
That was one where I definitely enjoyed the cheesiness of it. It's like, what is this chant that they come up with?
How funky is your chicken? How funky is your chicken? How loose is your goose? Our goose is totally loose. So come on, all you hot fans. So come on, all you hot fans. And shake your caboose. And shake your caboose.
What did you think of the principal in this? Because Stephen Root, who's another quite well-known actor now.
Yeah, the guidance counselor who's trying to tell her how he was
Yeah,
high at Woodstock and his friend turned into a toaster. Yeah, he was good stuff. I recognized him from Brooklyn Nine-Nine because I've been watching Nine-Nine recently.
Okay.
He plays Boyle's father. He's brilliant. He's so good. I love at the end after everyone's been like all the vampires have broken into the gym and there's like all the dead bodies lying around and he's walking around, he's like detention, detention, detention. and then there's that part where Hilary Swank's character is getting all hysterical and she's like, don't let her in, and he just kind of like just shoves her into the walls, just like, nope, done with you.
Yeah, I like him as an actor. He's good in those sorts of parts. He was good fun. Yeah, we could have done a bit more of him, but no, he was good. Yeah.
Definitely. No, I think with this movie, obviously it's not the best movie. It's not the most well-made movie. You can definitely tell why Joss Whedon got frustrated enough to walk off the set and why they don't reference this movie a lot. But I have such a soft spot for it. I think it's got a lot of cheese. I think also because you can see the potential that was then built upon to make this TV series. So when you see little glimpses of the character that Buffy would become, or the way the mythology was produced, or even just the prototype for the Buffy and Giles relationship, even though it didn't really work in this one, the fact that Merrick and Buffy obviously have that kind of angle, and obviously without this movie, we would not have a TV show. And I think people like really need to remember that if they never made this movie, they probably never would have made the TV show. So at the very least, we should be grateful for that.
Yeah.
Maybe not too grateful because it's still, but definitely remember that because of this, we ended up with the series.
Well, I was going to ask you, did you see this first or the TV show first?
No, I watched the TV show completely out of order. So I saw parts of the TV show, then I saw this, and then I saw kind of the rest of the TV show. What about you? Which one did you see first?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I think I saw the TV show. It's hard to remember. It's possible I might have seen the film ages ago and maybe just didn't remember it that well, but I think I saw the TV show first. I'm pretty sure I did because, just making the point that I think that makes a difference. And I think, I think if you saw the film first, maybe you're going to be a bit more generous in some cases, because obviously most people who see the TV show tend to love it, and it obviously has this reputation. And then if you go back and watch the film, you're going to be more like, well, what's this sort of thing? Whereas if you saw the film first, probably that's going to cushion that a little bit. I will say, even though I'm not really a fan of the film like you, I think as a massive Buffy fan, it still has an important place. It still has this sort of cult, sort of oddity type feel, and just as part of the universe which it is and part of the fandom, it's something which I will still rewatch even though I don't really like it. And so it does hold that. Again, it's one of these ironies where obviously the series, vastly improved on it and is a classic, and that's sort of partly why the film gets so much hate. But at the same time, it is sort of one of those ironies that in some ways you couldn't have one without the other. And because this is where it all started, really, for that reason, I'm always gonna. I'm not gonna be watching it that often, but I will return to it from time to time. And you know, I will proudly say, yeah, this is the Buffy movie. I'm watching the Buffy movie. I don't really like it, but it's part of the history. So
Yeah,
it does
fair
hold
enough.
this sort of cult sort of appeal, I think, for those reasons. And I've certainly seen much worse. And as I said, it had its moments. I think, apart from the fact that I didn't like the vampires and some of that stuff, um, I think it comes down to the humour, because obviously that's what the movie is sold on largely. And yeah, I didn't find it particularly funny. So I think that's the big thing.
I think some of it also is a generational thing. Like, I think people younger than us, who were maybe from a later generation and didn't grow up with this type of 90s and late 80s and early 90s movies, because a lot of it when I watch it is just because I love movies from this era so much. So a little bit of the nostalgia factor definitely, comes through in that. So I'm maybe a little too generous to this movie just because there's quite a few factors that go into, like, when I watch it that heighten my pleasure of watching it. Whereas if I wasn't from this particular generation, or I didn't like these particular types of movies, maybe it would be a little bit harsh for me. I personally find this film hilarious, but I find it hilarious not because it's well written, but because I find the way the actors decide to play of these kind of scenes like really well. Like, for example, like we were talking about before, the scene where David Arquette's character visits Pike and he's literally floating outside his bedroom window. It's not a great written scene, it's not a great directed scene, but Luke Perry and David Arquette just seem to be having so much fun in that scene that so many of the lines just then make me laugh and just really give me a lot of enjoyment. So when we let's see, how would you rate this film? And I'm guessing like with this one we're going to be rating on level of enjoyment as opposed to merits of the film, but if you had to give it a score out of 10, where would we land?
Sadly it's a 4 out of 10.
Oh no, that's so
Because
low.
it's a bad film.
Oh,
And the humour doesn't work for me the way it works for you.
Oh no.
Looking at it, I thought decent Buffy. Swanson was good.
Mhm.
Decent love interest. I like Luke Perry, as always. One or two good gags, but overall the humour didn't really do it for me. And terrible vampires and kind of, I mean, stuff like like the opening and just stuff like that. We don't really need this flashback stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that
true.
stuff can be lost from the film. Because in a way, like the Merrick character can just describe that in like one line of dialogue, sort of thing. So no, it's a bad movie. I mean, I'm still gonna recommend people check it out. And as I said, it does have this cult sort of oddity feel to it. And as a big Buffy fan, I'm still gonna watch it. So I'm not gonna say don't watch it to people, but it's a bad movie. I mean, I can't really just I can't really hide.
Well, I will give you that. You're not wrong there. It is not a great film, but I find it so enjoyable that I would actually give it like a 7 out of 10 because I just find it that much fun to watch. So I definitely agree. Bad film. We've definitely got some bad acting, but Christy Swanson is actually a really good Buffy. Her characterization is actually fairly solid, not fantastic, but fairly solid. Pike, Luke Perry, fantastic. RIP, obviously, it's a little sad, like we said, watching this now. Pike is still a great character. And for me, because it's so cheesy and it's so much fun, I find it entertaining. I find it hilarious. Every time I don't rewatch it that often. I obviously do not rewatch it anywhere near as much as I rewatch the series. But whenever I do rewatch it, I just find myself having a good old time. Yesterday, I was just, I'm just lying in bed, laughing to myself, watching it, chilling out with the cats. It's a good time. So if I was to rate it like purely on whether or not it was technically a good film, I'd probably end up having to give it a 4-2 because it really is it's not a well-made film. But as far as enjoyability goes, for me, it's about a 7 out of 10. Nothing spectacular, but a fun video to throw on a Sunday afternoon if you just want some light, cheesy entertainment. And if you are a Buffy fan, I do think it's worth checking out, even if you obviously don't go into it expecting the series because it is nowhere near, not even in the vicinity of the same caliber, like completely different ball games. But if you want to see the origin of Buffy and you want to see a slightly different take on the character and you want to see where it all started, I would recommend checking the movie out at least once. Just give it a go at least once. Then you don't ever have to watch it again if you don't want to.
No, I agree, and we've discussed this in past weeks. I appreciate the value of a good guilty pleasure, and it sounds
Mhm.
like to you
That's
this.
what it is for me, definitely.
So,
Yes.
and sometimes when I enjoy a film on that level, I do bump the rating up more than the actual film, maybe
Yes.
just. So I'm on board with you, even though it didn't really do it for me. But that's
Good
just
stuff.
a taste thing. But there you have it. So that's the Buffy movie. Obviously, we disagree, but there's some points we agree on at least, and it was
Mhm.
fun revisiting it and doing
Yes.
it month of October. So if you guys have seen the Buffy movie, let me know what you think of it. What did you think of Swanson as Buffy? What did you think of some of the other characters? And yeah, do you enjoy it as much as Rachel? Do you not like it so much like me? Just let me know your thoughts. And we hope you're having a good October. There's going to be many more reviews from us coming up this month. So take care, guys, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.